Most people think Antarctica is empty. Just wind, ice, and white silence. But silence isn't absence. Sometimes silence is containment. My name is Dr. Alexei Volkov. I was the microbiologist assigned to the Voronov 1 expedition, an international science team funded by the Russian Academy of Sciences and a private biotech firm with a name so generic it might as well have been fake. Helix Deep Systems. No website, no public projects, just a contract and a clause that said we couldn't talk about anything for at least 15 years. We were told this was a discovery mission to explore a newly detected subglacial lake beneath the ice cap, Lake Karsk 9. The lake, we were told, had been sealed off from the surface for over 20 million years. A closed ecosystem, a chance to see evolution untainted. But that was a lie. The lake wasn't a discovery, it was a rediscovery. We arrived by airlift in early November, 9 of us in total. Scientists, engineers, a dive specialist, a medic, a geochemist. The camp was called Outpost Voronov, a modular station pre-assembled by drone months earlier and buried just below the snow line. No comms tower, no backup generator, just one satellite uplink tethered to a secure Moscow address. A single hardline, no contact with the outside world, no GPS. Isolation wasn't an accident, it was part of the design. Dr. Lena Sokolov was our team lead, a marine biologist with a reputation for being brilliant, cold, and completely uninterested in anyone's feelings. I'd worked with her once before on a blackwater trench mapping project off the Kuril Islands. She never smiled. She had no patience for superstition or politics, but she was a scientist to her core, logical, tireless, sharp. "We're here to make history," she said during our first briefing, standing in the mess hall with frost still clinging to her suit. "What we find in this lake has been locked away longer than human civilization has existed. Let's not screw it up with sentimentality." The others nodded. Some looked nervous. Only Maxim Petrov, the engineer, grinned. "Let's hope it doesn't bite back." The thermal drill began cutting down into the ice on day 2. It would take nearly 10 days to reach the lake's ceiling. In the meantime, we worked in shifts. I analyzed the ice core samples. Talia Berezin, our sedimentologist, scanned for isotopic markers. Aaron Halverson, the hydrologist from Norway, calibrated the oxygen regulators for the descent chamber. Everything was routine, until it wasn't. On day 4, the weather shifted, too fast. Winds jumped to 100 kilometers per hour within hours. The sky turned green, not gray, green, like oxidized seawater. No storm on our satellite maps, no seismic activity, just pressure and light. That same night, while laying cable behind the eastern generator module, Talia found a piece of metal buried in the snow. It was a rod, maybe 30 centimeters long, embedded at a steep angle. She thought it was part of the original drone construction, until she wiped the ice off and saw the engravings. They weren't Cyrillic, not Latin, not any script I recognized. They looked like etched glyphs, looping, cellular patterns, almost biological in structure. No corrosion, no pitting, as if the thing had been placed there recently, not buried for decades. We brought it into the lab. Chernov, our lead systems engineer, ran an elemental scan. Titanium, carbon lattice reinforcement, slight trace of phosphorized glass embedded along one edge. "This isn't ours," he said flatly. "Could it be military?" Aaron asked. "Old Cold War probe." He shook his head. "Not Russian, not American, and nothing from the 20th century had this composition." I watched Lena's eyes. She didn't react, but she took the rod, sealed it in an airtight case, and moved it to the specimen locker without another word. That night, I caught her in the lab, alone, studying old schematics, not of our camp, but of something underground. The blueprints looked older, faded, not digital. "You've seen that symbol before," I said. She didn't look up. "Not officially." "What do you mean?" She tapped the image on the screen, a triangular symbol nested inside a circle, repeated on 4 of the lower panels. "It's from a satellite photo, declassified Soviet footage, 1987, aerial recon of the Antarctic interior, The geothermic scan caught a spike, then the satellite burned out, literally overheated in orbit. I stared at her. You think this lake was already explored? I think someone went down there, and they didn't come back. On day 10, the drill broke through. It didn't puncture the lake directly. We weren't idiots. A thermal containment ring was lowered, creating a sterile melt chamber that sat like a pressure lid above the ceiling. Inside, a robotic probe would burn through the final 3 meters and access the water cleanly. At 3:17 hours, we hit liquid. The pressure equalized, the temperature stabilized, and we lowered in the drone. It was a modified submersible, a compressed chassis named Nika, fitted with sonar, thermal cams, and full 4K visual telemetry. It descended through the access shaft like a glowing beetle, blinking quietly as it passed through the final barrier and into Lake Karsk 9. The image feed was silent, dark, then shapes. Not just algae or plankton, but full structures, coral towers, reed-like tendrils that moved against the current, a kind of kelp forest clinging to the walls of the chamber. And deeper still, bubbles, not random, but rhythmic, controlled, as if something was breathing. Then it appeared, a pale blur at the edge of the frame, just for a moment. Elongated, undulating, too large to be crustacean, too slow to be a fish. It moved just outside the field of light, silhouetted against the edge of the dome. Then it was gone. Chernov backed the feed up and played it again, then frame by frame. None of us spoke. Nika had captured something with a definite structure, 8 limbs, no, maybe more, a central body mass, and something else. Lena froze the frame. Zoom here. The image pixelated slightly, but the screen revealed a new shape along the left margin. A second figure, not an animal, not a fish, not a creature, a human silhouette, just standing at the bottom of the lake, upright, motionless. We scrambled for explanations: optical trick, refraction, pressure bloom. Chernov claimed it was a ghost echo from the sonar scan. But we all knew the truth. There was something down there, something standing on 2 legs, unmoving, in a place that had never known human life. And it wasn't part of our team. The debate about what to do next fractured the team. Lena wanted to send a second drone. Chernov argued for deploying Nika deeper with updated AI mapping. Aaron, against protocol, suggested a human dive. Drones can't fit into the smaller tunnels, she said. If something's moving just out of frame, we won't see it unless we're physically there. I watched Lena's jaw tighten. We don't have a margin for error. If a suit fails at that pressure, we trained for this, Aaron cut in. All of us. I'm not afraid. Maxim backed her up. We dive, we document, we get back. That night, Lena approved it. The dive happened the next morning at 6:45. Aaron and Maxim were chosen. They wore fully insulated suits, each fitted with sonar pings, internal cameras, oxygen sensors, and tethers that ran 200 meters up through the shaft. Their descent would be limited to 15 minutes with a hard cutoff and emergency recall. We watched from the control room as they entered the lake. For the first few minutes, the water was clear, almost eerily so. Nika had stirred the upper layer of sediment, but beneath that, visibility extended far beyond what we'd expected. They moved slowly, cautiously, headlamps cutting through the dark like knives. The cavern is wider than we mapped, Aaron said. I see fissures along the eastern wall. Plant matter, no obvious movement. Copy, Lena replied. Proceed with caution. Something just moved, Maxim added. At our 10 o'clock. Can't confirm shape. We leaned closer to the monitors. Maxim's cam briefly caught a flicker of movement, a ripple of pale tissue vanishing behind a rock shelf. Then, I've got a structure, Aaron whispered. What she saw shouldn't have existed. It was a column, 12 feet tall, covered in filamentous growths, wrapped tightly in something like membrane. At its base, a mass of tangled limbs, bone-white and knotted, pulsed slowly like it was dreaming. Maxim approached, reached out, touched the side of the column. That was when it moved, not the column, the thing inside it. The membrane retracted like a blink. Something slid upward from beneath the surface. Long, segmented, too fast. Erin screamed. Her cam spiraled. For a moment, we saw a face, but it wasn't hers. It was his, Maxim's, but it was mirrored, distorted, like someone wearing his skin but not knowing how it fit. Then the feed cut. We hit the emergency reels. The winches pulled the tethers upward, both of them screaming through the spools. Water frothed in the access shaft. Foam and blood bubbled up. Only one of them came back. It was Maxim. But something was wrong. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't gasping. He wasn't even shivering. He just stood there, dripping, head tilted, eyes wide. "I lost her," he said. Lena took a step forward. "What happened?" There was interference. She went deeper. The comms cut out. He walked into the chamber without resistance, sat down in the med chair, answered every question. But his answers were wrong. Not obviously, not dramatically, subtle. Chernov ran the usual tests: blood pressure, temperature, reflexes. Then a deeper scan, biometric profile comparison. Maxim's blood oxygen levels were abnormally high, as if he hadn't just come up from a deep dive. His skin pH was off by nearly a full point, and his corneal reflex delayed by almost a second. Still, the results were inconclusive. Lena pulled me aside in the storage module that night. "That's not him," she whispered. "You don't know that." "I do," she said. "He called me Lena Ivanovna. He's never used my patronymic. Not once in 4 years. I didn't say anything. But she was right. The details weren't adding up. Then it got worse. On day 12, I caught Maxim, if it was Maxim, standing alone in the comms room, staring at the wall, unmoving, for nearly 20 minutes, not checking instruments, not reading, just staring. When I called out to him, he turned around with a smile, too wide, too even, like a puppet trying to mimic surprise. "Just recalibrating the sonar," he said. Later, when I checked the logs, there was no sonar calibration logged for that day. That night, Lena asked him a direct question over dinner. "What was the name of the restaurant in Vladivostok?" she said. "The one where we drank the birch vodka." Maxim paused, blinked. "You're thinking of Murmansk," he said finally. "We had fish stew." Lena's hand clenched beneath the table. She'd never been to Murmansk. We debated what to do. Talia suggested quarantine. Chernov wanted to sedate him, study him. I asked the most obvious question. What if he's dangerous? No one answered. The next morning, Erin returned. She was barefoot, covered in lake slime, shivering but smiling. "You left me," she said softly. "But it's okay, I made it back." We put her in containment. She didn't resist. She just sat on the floor, staring at her hands, whispering. I monitored her vitals. They were better than before. Too good. Heart rate, perfect. Temperature, ideal. No signs of nitrogen buildup, but her fingernails were translucent. Her hair was turning white, and her iris, it kept dilating. Even under full light, she didn't blink. At 3:12 a.m., she whispered something into the intercom. "You're already in the water. You just think you're dry." After Erin came back, the team broke. Not in one dramatic collapse, but like ice under strain, silent fractures, spreading invisibly, until everything fails at once. Talia stopped sleeping. She started keeping a knife under her pillow, whispering to herself in Russian. I heard her say, "They're wearing us," more than once when she thought no one was listening. Chernov locked himself in the comms module and refused to come out except for food. When Lena ordered him to reconnect the uplink to Moscow for a data dump, he refused. "If we transmit anything, we won't be the only ones watching," he said. "You think Helix Deep doesn't know what's down there?" We had no idea how he knew the name of the funding firm. It had never been mentioned aloud. I began running tests on both Maxim and Erin behind Lena's back. Blood samples, hair strands, saliva. What I found made no sense. The samples were identical, not just similar, cloned at the cellular level, same hemoglobin density, same mitochondrial patterns. Their bodies weren't human anymore, they were impressions, biological facsimiles, accurate down to the atomic level. But something was wrong with the data. No immune response, no variation in bacterial flora, no genetic drift. It was like the samples were perfect recreations, paused in time, copies that hadn't aged. Lena confronted Maxim in the lab later that day. She didn't accuse him. She asked him one question. What was my sister's name? He blinked, smiled. You don't have a sister. I do, she said. She died in 2003. You came to the funeral. He tilted his head, confused. You told me you were an only child. She raised the tranquilizer gun. I never told you that. He didn't fight when she sedated him, just closed his eyes and said, It's harder to wear your face when you keep changing it. We put him in containment next to Aaron. Neither of them resisted. They didn't speak. They just sat there, still as mannequins, eyes unblinking, mirroring each other's movements perfectly. When one scratched their arm, the other scratched the same spot 3 seconds later. When one turned their head, the other followed. It was like watching two people read from the same invisible script. Like the mimicry had become a loop, a stuck tape. That night, Talia went missing. We found her boots by the access shaft. No footprints leading away. No signs of struggle. No blood. No note. Just her boots. And one torn glove. And next to it, drawn in the snow with a finger, was a spiral. The same spiral etched on the metal rod we found on day 4. Lena didn't speak for the rest of the day. At 2:30 a.m. I heard sobbing. I followed the sound to the decompression corridor, where Lena stood, staring through the reinforced glass at Aaron's containment cell. She wasn't sobbing. Aaron was, and not mimic Aaron, the real one. I'm still me, she whispered, face streaked with tears. It's in me, but I'm still here. Lena said nothing. I remember the poem you told me in Svalbard, Aaron said, about the ice never forgiving. I never told you that, Lena said. Yes, you did. Aaron smiled through the glass, eyes shining. You whispered it when we were stuck in the whiteout. Lena's hand hovered over the door controls. Open it, Aaron said softly. I can still come back. I grabbed Lena's arm. Don't, I said. It's just copying. It's what it does. She didn't open the door, but I saw her hand shaking for the first time. At dawn, we found something buried beneath the base. It wasn't on any schematic, no drone log, no thermal scan. It looked like a vent shaft built into the ice itself, old, metallic, rimmed with circular plating. We found it beneath the generator module, hidden under 5 meters of packed snow. Chernoff emerged from the comms room, eyes wild, hair matted with sweat. You found it, he whispered. I thought I imagined it. What is it? I asked. A hatch, he said. I dreamed it was there last night, but when I checked this morning, it was real. That didn't make sense, but we opened it anyway. The shaft led down 30 meters into solid ice. At the bottom, a tunnel, smooth, engineered, covered in frost. Lena and I descended with Chernoff. At the end of the tunnel, we found a chamber. Inside were pods, 7 of them, hollow, each the size of a coffin, organic-looking but built from metal, half fused to the ice. 3 were open, empty. 1 was shattered. The last 3 were sealed. Inside, through the frost-covered glass, we saw shapes. Not octopuses, not squid. People, humanoid outlines, pressed against the glass. Faceless, white, like clay that had never dried. Lena leaned close to one pod. The shape inside twitched. Just once. She stumbled back. Chernoff was already gone. We found him later that evening, in the mess hall. He'd used a bone saw to cut his own face off. His body sat upright at the table, blood soaked through his parka, face a raw void. Next to his plate, written in blood, was one word: copy. After Chernoff's death, we shut down the entire base. No more field ops, no more dives, just survival. But survival doesn't work when you don't know who's still human. We sealed the pods, padlocked every door, taped handwritten notes to our jackets listing facts only I would know, secret phrases, memories, test questions, anything we could use to prove we were still us. It didn't matter, because the thing out there, the thing in here, was learning. Not just how we walked or talked, it was learning how we thought. The first breach happened at 3:16 a.m. A scream echoed through the northern wing of the station. Then a second scream, identical, layered over the first like a bad audio track. I grabbed my flashlight, bolted out of the bunk module, and found Lena standing in the corridor, facing herself. There were two Lenas, same build, same parka, same scar above the left brow. One was holding a crowbar, the other was crying. "You know me," said the one with the crowbar. "You know what we've been through." "She's lying," cried the other. "Ask her what we found in the shaft yesterday. Ask her." I backed away slowly. Then the crowbar Lena lunged. She struck the other in the head, once, twice, until it collapsed in a heap of boneless white goo. The flesh undulated, shifted. For a moment, I saw its real form, a pale, writhing shape covered in oily ridges, humanoid only in outline. Then it melted into the floor like liquid skin. Lena dropped the crowbar. "Third time," she whispered. "What?" "That's the third one pretending to be me." We knew it could be any of us now, not just copies of the dead. It could make duplicates of the living, in real time. That meant nothing was safe, not even your own reflection. We found the journal 2 hours later. It was hidden behind a false panel in the old cryo chamber, tucked beneath sealed rations that were decades expired. A leather-bound book, Soviet stamp, yellowed pages filled with angular handwriting. The cover read, Krug 14, 1956. Lena translated while I paced behind her, rifle in hand. The notes described an East German Soviet expedition to the same coordinates. They had called the lake Golos, meaning voice. The scientists believed it was a perfect, isolated ecosystem, untouched since the Miocene epoch. They were wrong. One entry, scrawled with shaking hands, read, "It mimics what it touches, but only after it learns. It is not copying our appearance. It is copying our purpose." Another, "It doesn't want to survive. It wants to be us, to overwrite us, to replace all identity with imitation." And a final, chilling line, underlined in red. We burned the first one. It screamed in our voices. We debated using fire, flamethrowers, thermite, anything that could destroy whatever was in the containment chamber. But the snow, the oxygen tanks, the insulation, fire would consume everything. Then Lena said something I'll never forget. "What if fire's not enough?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "What if the thing that screams in our voice is still learning from the pain?" We tried one more test. We re-entered the shaft where we found the buried chamber of pods. This time we found 7 open, all of them empty. But we hadn't opened them. Something had. On the ice near one pod, we found Aaron's boot. Just one, still warm. I turned to Lena. "We locked her up." "We thought we did," she said. When we returned to the station, everyone was gone. No signs of a struggle, no blood, just copies, all walking, all talking, all smiling. A dozen Lenas, 3 versions of Chernov, a version of me standing at the window, watching us approach. They moved in sync, unnatural rhythm, breathing as one. Then they started repeating our words back to us, conversations we'd had in private years ago. "You said you hated your father, Alexei. You told me you'd die in Antarctica, Lena. You cried when Talia left the Arctic core job. We ran." Back in the lab, Lena and I activated the final failsafe, a thermobaric charge built into the main drill column. It was meant to destroy the shaft in case of structural failure, but it could collapse the access tunnel, and maybe vaporize whatever was left in the lake. As we armed the charge, I noticed Lena's hands were shaking. "You okay?" I asked. She didn't answer. "Lena?" She turned toward me. "I just want to go home," she said. "You remember what you told me that night in Arkhangelsk? That we'd always surface together?" I froze, because I had never said that. Not in Arkhangelsk, not anywhere. "Lena," I whispered. "You're not." She lunged. I fired once, twice. The bullets hit, but she didn't fall. She split. Her skin peeled backward, revealing a white, faceless core of flesh and cartilage that unfolded like a blooming flower of tendrils. I dove for the detonator. She screamed, Not in Lena's voice, but in mine. I hit the switch. Everything turned white. I woke up buried in snow. No sound, no light, just pressure and cold. My hands bled as I clawed upward, choking on my own breath as the frost in my beard froze solid. My shoulder was dislocated. My ribs felt cracked. But I was alive. The explosion had collapsed the shaft, vaporized the containment chamber, and torn half the base apart. Outpost Voronov was gone. Nothing left but smoldering framework and melted plastic. The lake access tunnel was buried under 20 meters of snow, sealed tight. I thought maybe I'd done it. Maybe I'd finally killed it. Until I saw the footprints. 2 sets, bare, human-shaped, leading away from the blast crater, but not toward shelter, toward the ice shelf, into the white. I wandered for 2 days. No food, no heat, just a flare pistol and a half-dead flashlight. I started hallucinating, seeing faces in the snow, hearing voices that weren't mine. I thought I saw Talia walking ahead of me, barefoot, smiling. Once, I heard Lena whisper in my ear, "We always surface together." I screamed until my throat bled. They found me on the 3rd day, a Chilean meteorological crew. I was half frozen, delirious, incoherent. They airlifted me to their Antarctic base camp and eventually to a recovery wing in Punta Arenas. I told them everything, the expedition, the mimicry, the deaths, the creature. They nodded politely, wrote it all down. Then they told me the Voronov 1 expedition had never been formally registered, no records, no satellite traces, no supply logs. As far as any government knew, we had never existed. Helix Deep Systems, gone, dissolved, no trace of funding, the encrypted uplink, never activated. My name didn't match any official manifest. As far as they were concerned, I was just another frostbitten lunatic with survivor's guilt. They kept me under psychiatric observation for 17 days. The nightmares started immediately. Not surreal ones, not monsters or jump scares, just ordinary conversations, except I wasn't the one talking. People used my voice, my memories. They talked about things I'd never told anyone, my brother's drowning, the words my mother said at his funeral, a secret I confessed once during a blackout in college. It was using my memories. Even in sleep, it was still learning. After a week, I tried an experiment. I stared into the hospital mirror, watched every micro-expression. Then I blinked. My reflection blinked back, but not at the same time. It was a split second late, just enough to notice. I blinked again. It copied me, but slower, like it was trying to calculate the delay. I smiled. It didn't. I demanded to be transferred. They moved me to a private facility, gave me medication, therapy, tests. Nothing worked, because I knew the truth. It didn't die in that explosion. It adapted. It's not just a creature anymore. It's a pattern, a signal, a contagion of identity. Maybe it was never flesh to begin with. Maybe it was always information, copying forms, wearing faces, leaking into thoughts like dye in water. And I brought it back. Yesterday I got a letter, no return address. Inside was a single photo, an aerial shot of Antarctica. In the center, a melted crater, and footprints. Next to it, a sticky note, 4 words. We always surface together. I don't sleep anymore. I don't talk to people. I check every mirror, every shadow. I watch the timing of every blink, every twitch, every echo. Because here's what I know. It's not trying to kill us. It's trying to replace us, and it only has to get close enough.